Scanning. Identity confirmed. Signal acquired. Initiating transmission. Stand by. Contacting Imperial High Council. Initiating Project Storytime.
Greetings, members of the Imperial High Council, and today we continue our look at Star Trek Enterprise. We start off with, oh hey, a B-cast! Welcome, guys! They are eating. Again. These two are just shooting the breeze when they see that Enterprise has encountered a new planet. I must admit, they did a really good job of bringing the sense of wonder that it really should have. Too bad, and then just the last episode, we know that they had landed on another world off-screen, and then on another planet to drop off a slug. I also like when we sometimes get a point of view from just the regular crew members. Sometimes getting the perspective of those not in charge can really help flesh out your supporting cast. We cut to the bridge, and Archer is being briefed on the planet. The planet is capable of sustaining humans, but there are no traces of intelligent life. Archer makes a sound decision, for once, and states that someone may have staked a claim on this world and scans for marker buoys or satellites. Reed says that there's nothing, so Archer asks Trip to prep a shuttle pod, but T'Pol advises that maybe they should do a detailed scan of the planet before they head down there. Archer then says something stupid.
I understand that you have a more cautious approach, but we didn't come out here to tiptoe around to get the pod ready.
To quote the great film Galaxy Quest, "Don't open that door. It's an alien planet. Is there air? You don't know." Yes, a Star Trek parody movie has more common sense than that of which they were parroting. After the titles, crewman Cutler is talking with T'Pol, trying to become a character on this show.
Thanks for choosing me for this mission.
You were selected because your specialty is entomology. This planet has a diverse insect population.
Oh, darn it. I was picked because I'm good at my job and not because I'm trying to build my relationships with the senior staff. So, a shuttle is launched and lands on the planet without any problems. Despite not having any detailed scans yet, Archer thought it'd be a great idea to bring his dog down so he could pee on everything on this world that might have an incredibly fragile ecosystem. For some reason, Archer tells T'Pol to stop scanning the atmosphere. You know, that thing that's needed for breathing? Archer just has everyone acting like tourists. They even pose for a picture on Trip's space camera. You know, in the entirety of human history, only 12 people have ever set foot on something that wasn't Earth. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin set foot on the moon's surface, they didn't just mill about doing nothing. They collected soil samples, moon rocks, conducted experiments on the solar winds. They had things to do. They weren't going on a merry little picnic. T'Pol tells everyone that they have their assignments and they all head off. Cutler is looking at This Is Where the Fish Lives. Archer, Trip, and Mayweather are looking at the dual moons, which they would have been able to see from the ship. And crewman, that guy, is stopping to smell the flowers. After they get called in from recess, Archer gets contacted by T'Pol that they're late for the rendezvous. Archer looks annoyed that someone on the away team is actually acting like a professional, and then they go meet up. T'Pol mentions that there are a number of nocturnal marsupials that she would like to study, and requests that Cutler and crewman That Guy stay with her on the planet during the night. It's not stated what That Guy's specialty is, but they said that Cutler is an entomologist. Why do you need the bug expert to study the marsupials? For some reason, Trip wants to stay planetside and volunteers Mayweather to stay as well. What a guy. Trip says something stupid.
When's the last time you slept under the stars?
Well, considering you live on a spaceship, probably every night. T'Pol points out that this is a research mission and not shore leave, to which Archer says it can be both, because mixing business and pleasure always works out well. Now we cut to that evening, and I'm not joking, They're sitting around the campfire telling space ghost stories. I know Archer granted shore leave to Trip and Mayweather, but these two are supposed to be on the clock. Are you guys paid by the hour or something? Get to work! The group has some nice dialogue about looking at our sun from another planet. And sadly, this would mean more if it wasn't for them having already visited other worlds by this point. Crewman That Guy has a headache and goes to lie down for a bit. That's when a storm arrives, so the team takes shelter in their tents. Trip says this is nothing compared to a hurricane in Florida. Then Mayweather says something stupid.
Try flying through an ion storm at warp 2.
That might sound really bad, if it hadn't been for the fact that the ending line of the very first episode was Archer having the ship fly through an ion storm because you can't be afraid of the wind. Anyway, Crewman That Guy is freaking out and is convinced he's hearing someone outside. Cutler tells him it's just the wind. And I know for filming purposes you need to have the tents open so you can see the actors, but maybe angle the camera so that we don't see that the tent door is open? Otherwise it kind of looks like Cutler is too stupid to close up her shelter in a storm. Trip feels a thing crawling on him in his sleeping bag and he's freaking out with Mayweather. T'Pol, overhearing those two shouting, has a look on her face of, I'm not getting paid enough for this job. The storm is picking up, so the away team relocates to a nearby cave. Back on Enterprise, Reed is giving Archer a weather report, because being a weatherman is just the kind of thing you'd expect to fall under the duties of the head of security and tactical officer. The storm is really getting bad, and they think getting them with a shuttle right now might be too dangerous. So, let me get this straight. You guys went down to an alien world, and you didn't even think to look at the weather? You're in space. You can see the weather patterns from orbit. And you didn't think to land where it might be clear for an overnight stay? This is basic common sense. Come on, man. Being the survival experts that they are, nobody thought to grab the food when they left camp. Starfleet's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Mayweather heads back alone to get the food, instead of with somebody because it's not like there's a storm outside. Meanwhile, Crewman That Guy is looking at some rocks. Mayweather grabs one of the food packs and sees some people walking around. He reports on what he saw when he gets back to the cave. Mayweather is saying he sees people outside, but T'Pol's scanner isn't picking up anything. Then Crewman That Guy hears voices, he freaks out and runs out of the cave. Trip and Mayweather take some phasers and go after him. T'Pol also grabs one and says that if he really did hear voices, she plans on finding out who they might be. While out looking, Trip sees a figure come right out of a rock, but when Mayweather comes to see what's happening, the figure is gone. Finding no sign of that guy, they turn back. Cutler, who was left all alone, is hearing voices, and while she's investigating, she sees T'Pol talking to some aliens. After the aliens leave, Cutler asks T'Pol who they were, but T'Pol has no idea what she's talking about. Trip contacts Enterprise with a status update, and Archer is sending a shuttle to go get them. Trip, Mayweather, and Cutler start to get suspicious of T'Pol as she's denying the existence of the rock people. Archer and Reed fly down in a dangerous storm. They tell Crewman That Guy to go back to the cave, and he tells them,
Go to hell!
Fine, be that way, buddy. Back in the cave, Trip and the others are continuing to dogpile on T'Pol for her denial of the rock people, which they've all seen. Clearly, she's the one acting weird. Trip then goes with good old-fashioned Vulcan racism. Vulcans kept information away from humans about warp drive, so what's stopping them from holding back information on the rock people, huh? That's a little thing called logic. Archer and the shuttle are having problems due to the storm and almost crash into a mountain. Archer is forced to retreat. But Archer, I thought you can't be afraid of the wind. You know, unless it's scary, it's gonna destroy the ship. Archer tells the away team to seek shelter in the cave, and they'll pick them up when the storm allows them a safe landing. Back in the cave, the away team starts to fall into paranoid rantings at T'Pol because of the rock people. T'Pol says that Trip is starting to become irrational, and Tripp says that she's never seen him irrational. Mayweather points out that they've run out of water, but T'Pol found some in the back of the cave. But Tripp doesn't want her to go back there. She might have another secret meeting with the rock people after all. When she suggests that he could join her in getting the water, Tripp thinks that she's setting up a trap by the rock people. T'Pol then says something stupid.
I can survive without water for several days. Can you?
Yes. Your average human can live about 3 days without water if absolutely necessary, so yes, we can survive several days. Since Tripp has no way of countering her otherwise flawless logic, Tripp lets his gun do the talking. See? Tripp isn't acting irrational at all. Back on Enterprise, Archer and Hoshi are scanning for crewman that guy. Why the communications officer is scanning for life signs, I don't know. Anyway, he's not doing well, so they decide to risk it and beam him up. The transporter is still pretty new technology and has only recently been approved for human use. Only top-notch experts should operate this device that breaks you down into your molecular components and then reassembles you onto the transporter pad. And those guys are apparently not around, so Reed has to do it. After all, he's the tactical officer, head of security, and the ship's weatherman. Why not add this to his job description as well? Reed beams him on board, but there were a few complications. I shall now call that guy Treebeard. Back in the cave, Tripp is still acting totally rational and takes away T'Pol's scanner because it might be evidence about her conspiracy with the rock people. T'Pol says that she now believes that humans under stress are far more volatile than she had previously thought. To prove how not volatile he is, Tripp yells at her. That'll show her, buddy. Tripp goes on a complete tirade against her and the Vulcans, as this whole thing is how the Vulcans are setting up Enterprise to be murdered by the rock people. Tripp, with every word you say, you're just proving the Vulcans were right. You're not ready to be out here. Whatever's affecting the away team is also starting to affect T'Pol, as when she tells Tripp that there's nobody else here with them, she's clearly angry, and Tripp is all too happy to point that out to her. Then he starts shooting rocks. In sickbay, Treebeard got treated for his sudden case of materializing with a tumbleweed inside his torso. Phlox talks about how his wounds should heal nicely. Archer wants to talk to Treebeard, but Phlox says that there is a psychotropic drug in his blood, so he wouldn't make much sense. The drug is found in the pollen of certain flowers. Archer asks why didn't their scanners pick up this drug. Phlox mentions that maybe because the scanners weren't calibrated to search for this compound, and Reed says it's possible that the pollen wasn't in the area until the wind brought it there. I'm not sure where to start with this. 1. Shouldn't the scanners be programmed to look for any known compound harmful to people? 2. Why would you scan only the area you were going to land at? You know wind is a thing, right? 3. And I can't stress this point enough. None of this would be happening if you had followed T'Pol's advice and studied the planet a little bit longer than just saying, "Ooh, pretty, you dope." This is your fault, Archer. Anyway, Phlox says that the effect should dissipate now that Treebeard is back on Enterprise. Archer asks if T'Pol can be affected by it, and Phlox doesn't know. Archer contacts T'Pol to inform her of the situation. She informs Archer of Tripp threatening to shoot her in the face. Tripp tells Archer about Operation Tinfoil Hat, all about how the Vulcans and rock people are working to destroy Enterprise. As anti-Vulcan as we've seen Archer behave, even he's not that stupid, so he tries to calm Tripp down. Tripp isn't giving up his theory that NX-01 was an inside job, but he trusts Archer. A while later, Tripp tries to get Mayweather on his feet, but like Cutler, he's passing out from the effects of the drug. He wants to know what T'Pol did to Mayweather, but the drug's effects on T'Pol are starting to make it difficult for her to speak English, so she starts speaking Vulcan. Great! Angry rednecks love hearing foreign languages. Tripp starts making demands of the rock people, and when he gets no response, he shoots the wall. As Tripp continues to hallucinate, T'Pol takes the opportunity to grab a weapon. Weatherman Reed says that the worst of the storm has passed, but it's unlikely that they would be able to land a shuttle before morning. Archer then gets a call from Phlox. Treebeard has taken a turn for the worse.
But each tropolysine atom contains a stray neutron. When it started to break down in his bloodstream, it released an undetectable toxin.
What? If every single atom of this thing contains a stray neutron, then by definition, it's an isotope. That means it's radioactive and has even more of a reason to be detectable by your scanners. Also, neutrons don't work that way. They don't affect the chemical makeup, just the mass. Anyway, Phlox says that if he had run a submolecular scan, he might have noticed this, but there was no reason to. Wait, huh? No reason to scan his molecules? He was in a transporter accident. He was beamed up with leaves and sticks poking out all over his body, and you didn't think to scan him? What, did you just prune the leaves off of him and call it a day? Phlox has treated him for the toxin, but it may be too late. But now Archer needs to get the away team this treatment before they all die from this radioactive pollen drug toxin. Back on the planet, Trip and T'Pol are continuing their little standoff. Archer contacts them and explains about the toxins. Trip is really becoming heated, not helped by T'Pol losing the ability to speak English. Archer tries to calm Trip down, but Trip is getting worse and sees more rock people. Realizing that Trip won't listen to reason, he plays along with the fantasies. While Phlox and Reed beam the cure down to them, Archer tells Trip about the deal with the rock people. While Trip is hearing about how the rock people will destroy Enterprise, T'Pol is given her orders in Vulcan, and she's told to play that she's giving a speech to the rock people. When Trip lowers his guard, T'Pol stuns him. Finally. With the threat over, T'Pol gets the antitoxin and injects everybody. Mayweather tries to leave, but she uses the Vulcan neck pinch on him. You had that this entire time, T'Pol, and never thought it could be useful? You're supposed to be the smart one! With the storm over and the effects of the radioactive pollen drug toxin starting to clear, Trip apologizes for being an asshole, the shuttle lands, and the day is saved. We have a trope rating of 2. 1 point for questionable science with the radioactive pollen drug toxin, and 1 point for transporter shenanigans with crewman Treebeard. There's a throwaway line that he pulled through, so we are still yet to have our first red shirt death. One day, maybe. Soon. One day. The good. The acting. While the script is weak, it's really propped up by the actors. 2. They remembered that phasers have a stun setting. This gets forgotten so many times. I'm so glad it was part of the solution. The bad. This is a pretty weak script. It has really baffling science, and it's really not helped by the redneck stereotypes. This story is not served well by the fact that Archer never learns a lesson. It's an alien world. Learn all you can about it before you set foot there. I get that he's the first one out exploring deep space, but basic common sense shouldn't elude the grasp of our captain. Now, it might have worked if they had made this a growing experience for Archer. Maybe have crewman Treebeard die, as he originally did in the script. And Archer learns to take greater care of how he handles away missions, like check the weather and perform detailed scans. The welfare of your crew is your #1 priority. Make sure it's as safe for them as possible. Computer, save file, and end transmission.
Affirmative. Processing. Terminating transmission. Ending communication.